Welcome back to the Real Estate Reserve Podcast. I'm Jason Balen, Hard Money Bankers co-host Ian Horowitz, Equity Warehouse, and back in studio, Chris Larsen from Next Level Income. If you didn't hear or watch Chris's initial interview we did with him a few weeks ago, definitely check that out. A lot of really awesome stuff that he's currently doing. We want to invite him back on the show to talk about a deal that changed his life. Chris, how are you? Good to see you again. Maybe just do a real quick intro, and then we can hop right in.
Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for having me back. And yeah, love catching up with you guys, being from just south of Baltimore. I know that area very well. Yeah, live in Asheville, North Carolina. I've been here for 16 years. As I shared in that first episode we did together, bought my first property at 21, and eventually moved into bigger commercial deals. If you want to learn more about my story and kind of what has happened between 21 and 25 years later, you can get a copy of my book, nextlevelincome.com. Just click on the book link.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have a deal in mind that in essence changed your life? It could be a good deal, it could be a bad deal, but a deal that in essence changed your life.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking when you guys asked me this, all these, the deals pop up, a couple good deals, a couple not so great deals. And I mean, and the one, and it goes back to kind of the focus of my book, which was value add multifamily properties. And the first deal that we syndicated was in Atlanta. We touched upon this a little bit in the first podcast. And it's kind of easy to use that as an example, but it was hard. It was a very hard deal to get done. Going from single family rentals to buying a multifamily property and raising, $4.5 million as we did, was a huge challenge, a huge stepping stone, but it ultimately opened the door to, over 4,500 units now that we're doing, the other asset classes that we're doing in self-storage and car washes and mobile home parks. That is the first deal that I actually brought in outside investors. And I think that's really the most important thing is if I could pick any deal, it would have to be a deal bringing in other investors, because when you say, I'm going to go from using only my own money to going and saying, hey, I now I'm stewarding more money, you can multiply that money, 10, 100, 1,000, even more times. So, Jason, as we were talking about raising, 9 figures of capital from investors, over the last, a little less than a decade, that is really what opens the doors. But you learn a lot of lessons. You learn a lot about people. It's crazy, the stories, that you hear, when you're working with investors. When things go well, everybody loves you. If things don't go well, despite if it's your fault or not, people don't like you. So Helene hit, and I had an investor reach out that was upset because they didn't get their distribution that day. They didn't get an email that day. And our CEO was stuck in the Atlanta airport. Our COO was stranded because the bridge washed out in his property, and he had no power and no water. And I literally delivered him fuel the next day and then brought him a Starlink so he can get back in touch. But when somebody can't push the button to release those distributions because they're not connected in this world, people get upset, right? Rightfully so. So I think that was the deal that really, changed things. Learned a lot. I learned a lot with that business partnership too. I'm no longer partners with that gentleman. So I learned a lot through not just getting the deal done and working with other investors, but also a lot about, what it takes to have a successful partnership too.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Partnerships, things always seem to show themselves as money gets involved, and what are your goals, and getting through that first deal is always the hardest one. And if you can get over that hurdle, and it could be going from single family to commercial, it could be your first deal, it could be your first loan, it could be your first anything. You just got to go do it. We have a similar 100%. We have a very similar story, raising $1 million for our first deal. I remember bugging Jason, hey, man, come on, Jason, no. I'm like, dude, this is such an obvious deal, no. And I begging to I'm like, and I should have listened to him all them years. He's like, don't ever beg. I'm like, shit, you're right. And but once we raised that $1 million, the floodgates opened, and we've crossed the $20 million mark of raising capital. It's just wild to think.
Yeah.
what can happen just by doing that first deal. And that's why we do these segments, because I think this is probably one of the most valuable segments we can do, that people know you got to get out there and go do deals and get into good stuff, bad stuff, and everything in between. And you're going to learn a lot of lessons. And if you have the grit and willingness to do it, you'll end up like this and hopefully be super happy and enjoying your life.
Yeah. And sometimes not. Like, it's not, and that's the thing. Like, things are going to go well, they're not going to go well. You have to learn from those. And that's the big thing. Like, one thing is that I learned, I mentioned the partnership. You want to work with people that have an abundance mentality. My old partner did not. He had a scarcity mentality. So it was kind of like, instead of saying like, oh, the more we do together, the more we both get, he thought like, oh, well, there's only so much that we can do. So I'm going to take as much as I can get, which, Jason, I love what you said, pay investors as much as you can, not only frequency, but also, provide as much value as you can to people. Raising capital, find out what's important to people. I just got off the phone with a coaching client, and he said he wants to be the best dad and husband he can be, next year. I was like, okay, what does that look like? For him, it means less time at work and more time with his family, and it's as simple as just turning his phone off during family time, for instance. These aren't necessarily hard things, but it is hard sometimes to ask those questions and really understand why people are doing it. It's probably not for the exact dollar. It's probably for something that dollar is going to buy them. The final piece is learn from somebody that's already done it. So we partnered with a group that had already done that. It's way cheaper to pay somebody 100% of your profits and learn a lesson to be successful than not. I just had the guy on our podcast, Next Level Income Show, that manages the wealth for the Hilton family. And he said, hey, most people don't know this, but the Hiltons really didn't get much of an inheritance. What they got was the lessons on how to make money. And they've all become wealthy from it in general. So that's the big thing. Don't seek the money, seek the knowledge that will make you the money.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super smart. Chris, where's the best place people can find you on the internet? They want to learn more about what you're doing.
Yeah. So again, please get a copy of our book, nextlevelincome.com. Click on the book link. You'll get a free copy if you put your address in, or you can get an ebook copy if you'd prefer that. You can check out all of our resources there. You can even chat with Chris GPT, and you just put your questions in, and it'll actually answer your questions based upon all of my hundreds of podcasts and books I've written, newsletters, and all that sort of thing. As my team tells me, it's actually better than me because it doesn't forget what I've said, which is kind of crazy. But
that's fair. So I'll let you guys in a little secret. We're recording this before the election, so go ask it. I'm going to ask it now, and then when this comes out, we'll know the answer, and we'll see if it's right or not. So
who won the election?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I don't talk politics on my
on
my podcast, but if you turn the recording off, I will talk politics the rest of the hour with you guys freely.
I'm sure we would all enjoy that. So that being said, guys, if you want to share, if like I said, it's not about the likes or subscribes, it's about the shares. It's the best compliment we can give Chris. He's dedicated his time. He's come back to us a second time, and we're so happy to have him on and been grateful to be a part of his show. So if you got any value out of it, please share it, and we will catch you guys on the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Reserve podcast. Do us a favor and like, comment, and share our broadcast. It helps the algorithm and helps us spread the word too. Till next time, thank you for tuning in.